forget yesterday. This is Calgary Today with Angela Kokot on QR77.
Chronic disease is having a huge economic and social impact on this country. A recent survey found 52% of respondents living with one or more chronic illness, and that number is going to soar as our population ages. Treating those diseases costs our healthcare system as well as the individual, and that financial strain can be even more serious when the illness prevents them from working. We are talking about living with a chronic disease or condition this half hour. Our guest is very familiar with the topic. Jason Reed is the owner of Sick with Success, who has lived with Crohn's and arthritis for more than 30 years. Good afternoon, Mr. Reed.
Hello, Angela. How are you?
I'm good. I want to start things off with what's Sick with Success?
Well, Sick with Success is an organization that has been set up to help people who are ambitious, career-minded people deal with the challenges of chronic illness. Now, in addition to one-on-one coaching with people who have chronic illness, I also actually talk to businesses, associations, and do corporate training to try and get the corporate and organizational world to really understand the particular challenges that people have when they have a chronic illness. Because, chronic illness is actually very different from having a traditional or acute illness.
I want to get into that. It must be a huge umbrella that illnesses and chronic conditions covers.
It does, and if you look up chronic illness in a medical dictionary, it's actually a little bit confusing. But what I've done is try to find a way to describe it that actually looks at it in real terms, in the way people live their lives. And what I've come up with is an acronym, UILL. It's easy to remember. U-ill, think of it as a question.
Mm-hmm.
And the U stands for unpredictable, because these diseases are inherently unpredictable. A lot of them have stages where you go into flare-ups and remissions, and people can feel different day to day, hour to hour, as opposed to traditional illnesses like the flu that, say, run a predictable course.
So that's the U.
That's the U. I stands for invisible, and this is a real key difference because we're used to sickness being visible. We really do think, and even I think this way sometimes, I catch myself doing it, is looking at somebody, and if they say they're sick, and I look at them and they don't look sick, is not believing them. But actually, I think it's 96% of people with chronic illness don't show any visible signs. So that's the I. Mm-hmm. And then the double L is long-lasting. And, of course, the term chronic means long-lasting. And the interesting thing with that is a lot of people still haven't come to grips with the fact that there are people who can be sick for very long periods of time. In fact, a lot of these chronic illnesses are actually incurable. And, people kind of wonder, well, when are you going to get better? Or, if I go to an HR person and mention that I'm sick, and they'll say, well, how long have you been sick? And I say, for 30 years, they kind of look at me strangely because it's something we really haven't got our heads around yet. Now, the problem that we have is if you look at all of our policies, everything from collective bargaining agreements, the way disability insurance works, all the way up to our healthcare system, it's predicated on these assumptions that illness will be visible, predictable, and temporary. And that's no longer the case anymore.
You talk about going to an HR person and saying, how long have you been ill? Well, for 30 years. I'm wondering when a prospective boss is looking at that employee saying, should I hire them? Right away, how difficult is that for someone living and dealing with an illness or a condition to be able to find employment?
Well, that's actually a question I get a lot from people is, do I disclose my illness and when do I disclose my illness? And there have been studies that have shown that, resumes and cover letters that actually disclose an illness in them are actually much less likely to have corporations call them back. So there is a certain amount of discrimination there. I think probably the best thing for people to do is actually wait until after the first interview into the negotiation phase when they know that the company, is interested in their skills, and possibly bring it up then if they think it's something that's going to be an issue, say, within the next 6 months or a year. But from the corporation's point of view, one of the things that I really try and communicate to them is they already have people in their organizations with chronic illnesses, because we know that a third of the working age people, 18 to 64, actually have a chronic illness. And it's really interesting if you think about the people you work with. If you see three people at work, chances are one of them actually has a chronic health condition. So these people are already in the workplace.
And they're working.
And they're working. I mean, the interesting thing about chronic illness is obviously it's an umbrella of several different illnesses. I think the World Health Organization recognizes like 70 different types of chronic illness. And obviously some of them are more serious than others, and even from person to person, they vary wildly in how they actually affect a person's function at work. So there are quite a lot of people who are actually leaders, managers, even executives who actually have a chronic illness, and many people don't even know about it. And I think that's one of the things going forward that it's going to be important for us to do, is to really get these people out of the closet so that other people realize, hey, I'm not the only one dealing with this.
We're talking about chronic illnesses, chronic conditions, and really the cost they are to our healthcare system, to society. Coming up after the break, I want to talk about the importance of working, those people who have those kind of conditions, what they get out of it, as well as what companies get out of it. We're back in about 3.